Sergeant Daniel Canopy recounts Custer's last stand, an eyewitness account. The gunfire was incessant. The cries never ceased. And once the haze dissipated, we were the only ones left. Custer had fallen, and I, for reasons unknown, remained standing. This is the true story of what occurred. Sergeant Daniel Canopy served as a member of the U.S. Army 7th Cavalry Regiment at the Battle of Little Bighorn on June 25, 1876. Assigned to Company C, his role in the engagement was significant. Canopy became one of the handful of men who survived, receiving acknowledgment for his courage and his personal depiction of the fighting. He subsequently acted as an important witness in the court of inquiry, providing essential perspective on the choices made by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer and the maneuvers of the 7th Cavalry. After the battle, Canopy continued his military service and recorded his memories of Little Bighorn. His written testimony, referred to as the Canopy Narrative, is a crucial historical document for examining the battle. Sergeant Canopy's courage and dedication throughout the conflict secure his status as a notable personality in U.S. military history. Before we continue, please remember to like and subscribe to our channel to support our community's growth. On May 17, 1876, we set out on a campaign that would prove decisive. Our route took us in the direction of the Yellowstone River. Having marched 12 miles to the Big Heart River, we set up camp and conducted reconnaissance of the surroundings. Approximately on June 10th, we moved forward to the Powder River. Half of the regiment's 12 companies were sent out on a reconnaissance mission. We left the supply wagons at the Powder River, transporting 10 days of supplies on our pack mules. For 2 days, we traveled along the Powder River before changing course toward the Tongue River. It was close to the Rosebud River that we initially discovered the Native American Trail. As evening approached, we made coffee and pursued the trail after dark. At first light, following more coffee, we proceeded with our advance until noon. General Reno, commanding our detachment, noted our limited supplies and commanded a withdrawal back along the Rosebud River. Where the Rosebud meets the Yellowstone River, we reunited with the other 6 companies of the regiment, led by General Custer. Department Commander General Terry was also there. At that moment, General Custer was confined. Talk indicated this was due to his resistance to the post traders who had obtained sole privileges at Army forts. These exclusive rights were canceled after controversies involving the leadership at the forts under President Grant's administration. The traders had controlled all commerce, compelling the soldiers to purchase goods solely from them. Even a modest glass of carelessly served whiskey was priced at 25 cents. Custer had established a maximum price, an action that led to his confinement. However, since numerous high-ranking officers backed him, he was returned to leadership at the place I described. On July the 22nd, Custer's men were supplied with 15 days of provisions from the steamboat Far West, which was moored on the river. Custer had access to 2 Rodman cannons and 2 Gatling guns. Thinking he would have no use for them, he transferred them to General Gibbon, who moved them to the other side of the river. In hindsight, this was a serious mistake. If he had retained just 1 Rodman gun and discharged a single round, those Native Americans would never have ceased their withdrawal. In fact, they would be fleeing now. And if our unit had possessed a Gatling gun, a much greater number of soldiers would have lived, perhaps including me. Honestly, the event known as the Custer Massacre might have been entirely avoided. On June 22nd, we packed our camp and advanced for the whole day. That night, Custer commanded a cessation of all trumpet calls, allowing just tiny fires for making coffee. From that point forward, instructions would be communicated using silent gestures. At sunrise on June 23rd, we began our march again, proceeding until almost dark before establishing camp. The following morning, June 24th, we arrived at a location where the Indians had conducted a sun dance and a war dance. They had constructed simple shelters from cottonwood branches, and the earth was packed flat and solid from their movements. 6 Crow scouts assigned to our unit rode forward and found the scalp of a white soldier, a man from Gibbon's command. When those Crows, who hated the Sioux we were chasing, saw the scalp suspended from a willow branch, they burst into a rage. They yelled, hollered, and danced intensely. What was their intention? If they had encountered a Sioux warrior at that moment, it would have meant his death. That is how furious they had become. They took the scalp to General Custer, who inspected it before having it circulated among the troops. Sergeant Finley, the most senior line sergeant in my company, had it stored in his saddlebag when he died. We continued our movement throughout the day on June 24th. That night, at about 10 o'clock, our scouts came back. It was completely dark by then, although in that area during summer you can still read naturally at 9 p.m. The command was given to saddle our horses and get ready to depart. We marched all night, approaching the place where the Rosebud River meets the Little Bighorn. Custer guided the regiment into a gully, a perfect concealed spot where we could have stayed hidden for any length of time. But as we entered at a quick trot and gallop, Quartermaster Sergeant Hurst dropped some hardtack from the pack mules. When Custer was informed about this, he commanded Hurst to go back and collect it. Upon arriving at the location, the sergeant discovered 2 Indians helping themselves to the bread. They fled immediately upon seeing the troops. When Hurst informed Custer of this, the general instantly commanded us to prepare to ride. I believe he had intended to attack at sunrise, but because the Indians were now aware of our location, he decided to assault immediately. Our formation moved up the ridge and then stopped. General Custer took Chief Trumpeter Henry Voss and 2 scouts, riding off for almost 2 hours. When he came back, he divided the regiment into 3 separate battalions. Major Reno was assigned Companies A, M, and G. Captain Benteen led Companies H, K, and D, while Captain McDougal was in charge of the pack train along with Company B. Custer retained Companies C, E, I, and F under his personal command. Once organized, we began our advance. Reno moved to the left of Custer, with Benteen spreading out even farther to the left. The tactical plan was evident, a coordinated attack on the Indian village from 3 directions. McDougal's pack train would come along the primary path. We urged our horses down what is now known as Benteen Creek, arriving at a ford where we found a recently deserted camp, the coals still warm. A single teepee remained standing with a deceased warrior inside. Custer commanded it to be set on fire. Reno's force appeared and was signaled to cross the creek. Meanwhile, Custer advanced quickly with 3 companies. As we approached the point where Benteen Creek meets the Little Bighorn, I observed warriors on top of the bluffs. "There is the enemy," I said to First Sergeant Bobo. Just then, Custer looked up, and our companies, C, I, and F, charged towards the high ground. Captain Tom Custer, the general's brother, commanded my unit. We rode with speed, but when we got to the summit, the warriors had disappeared. Below us, the valley extended for miles, thick with teepees. Our Crow scouts wanted to stampede the pony herds. A few attempted it, but gunfire swiftly forced them to retreat. Only Chief Scout Mitch Booyer, the Crow warrior Curly, and Bloody Knife, a re-scout, stayed with us on the bluffs. When the soldiers saw the village, they burst into cheers, and we raced along the ridge, getting ready to charge down. I rode near Sergeant Finley, both of us close to Captain Custer. Suddenly, Finley shouted that his horse was giving out. "Keep going if you are able," I yelled. He dropped back. At that exact moment, the captain ordered me to go back and locate McDougal, with critical instructions. "Tell him to bring the pack train straight to the high ground. If the packs become loose, cut them off. Move quickly. There is a very large camp ahead." I turned my horse around. At that time, it seemed like terrible fortune, but it is what preserved my life. If Finley had not fallen behind just before, he would have been given those orders instead, and I would not be alive to share this story. In the far distance, a cloud of dust showed where the pack train was located. As I rode towards it, my company and the rest charged down toward the Indian village. The final command I heard from Custer stayed with me. Our soldiers on the ridge gave 3 cheers as we raced by. Some could not hold their horses back. "Steady, men!" "Control your horses," Custer called out. "There are plenty of them down there for everyone." They continued their charge while I headed back. I reached McDougal, gave him the message, and then continued on to Benteen, as I was told. McDougal's men climbed the bluffs to aid Reno's forces, which were falling back. Warriors poured after them, screaming and shooting. Soldiers dropped dead where they stood, many scalped before we could reach them. Dr. DeWolf was killed just below the top of the bluff. A few more paces would have meant his safety. On my way to Benteen, I saw people running. With my rifle raised, I almost shot, before realizing they were our own scouts escaping from Reno's broken battalion. They did not stop running until they had reached the Powder River. After delivering my message to Benteen, I returned to Reno's combined forces on top of the ridge. Custer's location was now blocked by warriors. Reno tried to advance but was forced to retreat, losing men to scalping parties before setting up defensive positions. The Indians kept up constant gunfire throughout the night. At sunrise on the 26th, they assaulted us again. We caused significant losses, though an exact count was impossible. Trapped with no water, the cries from our 68 wounded men were agonizing. Volunteers who attempted to get water were shot down. I will always remember that first bullet. It passed under my horse's belly and hit the ground. 14 men and 2 officers, Harrington and Sturgis, disappeared without a trace. There was talk that the Sioux displayed their severed heads that night. Our defensive stand on the hill resulted in 56 dead over 2 days of combat. By the evening of the 26th, the village started to move. Warriors continued to fire on us while the women took down the teepees. By the morning of the 27th, they had disappeared. We finally managed to get water, made coffee, and cared for our wounded. Around 10 a.m., Gibbon's column arrived with General Terry. Our cheers brought General Terry to tears. His report of finding 200 bodies in the valley confirmed Custer's complete destruction. Our slim hope that he had survived was gone. That afternoon, Benteen went to inspect the battlefield. Among the swollen bodies, I recognized my friends, including Sergeants Finkel and Finley. Finley was lying next to his horse Carlo, 12 arrows stuck in his mutilated corpse, where it had lain under the sun for 2 long days. The scene of the battle showed its full brutality. You could tell which men had been wounded by the arrows covering them or the tomahawk strikes to their heads, all delivered after the women and children had taken all their clothes. The dead were left alone, but not one fallen soldier still had his uniform. The warriors had taken all possessions, including what we calculated was $25,000 in money, our recent pay from Powder River Camp, still with us since there had been no place to use it. I found the last defensive position. The bodies were heaped together, with General Custer fallen across several men, only the small part of his back touching the ground. A circle of dead troops surrounded him, a single shot through his heart. Close by lay Captain Tom Custer, the general's brother, and Lieutenant Calhoun, his brother-in-law, leading H Troop. The size of the enemy force was now obvious, around 4,000 warriors with their families, increasing the total to 12,000 or more. Against this army, Custer's 4 companies had no possibility of success. When the fighting ended, only one living being was left on that terrible ground. Comanche, Captain Keogh's horse, was discovered with 7 gunshot wounds, but still alive. Within the devastation, we found 3 standing teepees containing about 75 native dead, though many more must have been removed. One warrior's body, wrapped in buffalo hides, contained a horrible trophy when I opened it, a line of scalps as long as my arm, including 4 from women, 2 with noticeable red hair. I let the dreadful thing fall at once, wanting no connection to such terror. After the battle, we buried our dead and got the wounded ready to be moved to the Far West steamboat. The boat had come up the river as far as it could before going back to the Yellowstone. Most of the wounded surprisingly lived, including Old Comanche, who was given a special status, a permanent stall by official order with a regimental bandsman appointed as his caretaker. At formal parades after that, the injured horse would walk at the front, covered in black mourning material, the final quiet witness to Custer's doomed force. The successful Lakota and Cheyenne warriors simply took down their homes and disappeared across the plains after their win. My broken regiment, what was left of us, could hardly care for our injured, never mind follow them. With almost every soldier seriously hurt, a chase was not feasible. The tribes had done something uncommon in our frontier conflicts, a clear, total victory, with no answering attack. Their groups dispersed into the huge wilderness, taking not just their plunder, but something more valuable, their liberty for a while. This story, fixed in my mind as plainly as the marks on Comanche's side, shows realities often missing from the myth. The searing heat of the rifles, the smell of blood-drenched ground, and the sharp war shouts that still sound in my sleep. The West's most significant fight didn't happen on an orderly battlefield, but in thick dust and total confusion. If these recollections have revealed new aspects of that decisive summer, please continue with us. More personal accounts are coming, unknown stories of honor and sorrow, written in frontier blood. The sounds of battle grew quiet. The Lakota and Cheyenne disappeared like spirits into the grassland breeze. And on that ridge stained with blood, history wrote its conclusion in spent bullet casings and dead soldiers. But what truly caused Custer's failure? Overconfidence? Poor information? Or did the West itself rebel that day to punish those who misjudged its heart? One thing is sure. The accounts from the survivors tell a tale that differs from the history books. And hidden below the legend is a frightening thought. Had any of us really comprehended the danger we were entering? Would we have ridden down those cliffs in the first place? This is not merely history. It is a caution carved in bone and powder smoke. Remain inquisitive. The past holds further mysteries to reveal. Thank you for viewing. Please click the like button, subscribe, and enable notifications for more content.